Most productivity systems promise to help you do more, track more, optimize more. I needed the opposite. I needed something that would help me stop compulsively checking my tasks lists and stop maintaining complicated systems, stop following productivity advice that assumes things that just aren't true for me. Hi, I'm Megan, and I help purpose-focused folks like you build sustainable systems that work with how you are designed, not how machines work. So stick around and find out why my main planning tool is this Disbound notebook. I need to stop maintaining complicated systems like Notion and stop following productivity advice that assumes things that just aren't true for me. That's why my main planning tool is this Disbound notebook. Here's what's different about how I use it. This planner is designed for action and process, not preservation. It's focused on one question: what helps me do the next thing effectively? At the end of every 6-week cycle, most of these pages in this notebook get trashed. That's intentional. Let me show you how this works. I keep most of my execution work on paper for 2 specific reasons. First, I can't trust myself to not compulsively check my digital task list. If it's on my phone or my computer, I'm going to keep opening that app, checking it, refreshing it constantly. And my brain just doesn't need it. So paper has just enough friction to stop that behavior. It also supports my goal of having tech Sabbaths throughout the month. When I need to step away from my computer, my work doesn't stop. It doesn't disappear. I don't have to lose access to the reminders that I want in order to do the work that I need to do. So I do use digital tools for specific things. I have time-critical prompts like medication reminders or events. And I also do some of my project planning in LLM chats, where I can break down bigger commitments into tasks and think through what needs to happen. But the Discbound, which where have I been all this time? I have never used a Discbound in my life, but I love it. The Discbound is where planning becomes action. This is my doing space, not my thinking space. So let me walk you through how I have my Discbound set up. I'm going to set my Hemlock and Oak A5 to the side, and we're going to focus on the Discbound. So when I am setting up my planner, I am trying to think about, well, what kind of information am I going to need when? And really, because this is focused on action, I want to get to my weekly spread as quickly as possible. So that's why I have that as my very first tab. I'm currently testing out inserts from Infinite Lotus. Very nice paper, really nice print, and not quite what I want. I'll tell you about that in a minute. But every week I have a new page that represents my actual work for the week. I use this to map out my workouts for the week, to remind myself of events that might be happening on a specific day, and to write down what tasks I want to do for that week, or notes and reminders that I have for myself. So this is where my actual work lives for the week. This is my doing, this is my action, this is my reminder to stay focused on what I intended to and what I plan to do for the week. I will pull the project focus and I will pull 2 or 3 tasks from my sprint planning, which I will show you in a minute. And throughout the week, this is what I've referenced. Not the sprint sprints, not the digital list, just this page. Purely functional. And it helps me answer the question, what's the next thing I need to do today? So I mentioned a minute ago that Infinite Lotus, super nice paper, love the tactile feel of it, very nicely printed. But what I'm realizing is I don't actually love seeing my weekly spread broken up like this. I don't actually like seeing it broken out by days. That's not how I look for information. That's not how I quickly scan to get information. And I'm not liking seeing the tasks on this page and separate from here. One reason that I have my tasks like this is because I want the freedom to decide when during the week I'm going to work on these. I have discovered that hard and fast time blocking or scheduling things just makes me feel angry and bitter and resentful, and I don't want to do it. So I give myself some agency over when I do a task by giving myself the week to work on it rather than saying I'm going to do a specific day. So with that in mind, this isn't really helping me. So the wonderful thing about Disbound is you can pull out the pages if you need to, but you can also find really good paper on Amazon that you can print at home. So once I get done with this particular weekly template, I'm actually going to switch to using a template that I created for myself. And you can see I have where in my sprint cycle it falls, the dates of the week, a project focus. And now you can see I've got this broken out by the types of information that I'm looking for, whether it's exercise for the week, whether it's appointments for the week, and whether it's tests. So that's where information like this will go when I get to using this particular template. And I'm also trying to migrate a lot of my digital reminders to a paper reminder. This is purely a prompt for me. It is because there are things that I just want to remember to attend to either through the day or through the week that I don't want to forget because I've decided that either it's important to me to do those regularly or future me will be really grateful that past me and present me decided to do this. Also, I am keeping track of the books that I'm reading in a given sprint cycle. As I read through them, I write down what I have finished and a quick rating. And then I also have some notes on each book. This is so that I can better engage with the books that I'm reading. I read both digital and physical. And also so that I can show up more prepared for the Chaos Club, which is a book club that my friend Rachel and I run. And we post the videos here on YouTube on this channel. So you can check those out if you want. But I want to be better able to show up because I realize that I tend to read pure escape on one end and pure research on the other. And I approached reading them very differently. So maybe I can try to bring together how I read these two by just doing a little bit more engagement with each of those books. For example, like I have some summary reflections here. As I'm reading the book, I'm just taking quick notes on each chapter as I go through. And again, all of that is right here in my week because these are the things that I'm actively referencing as I go about my day and my week. And the tabs just help me keep it visually separate, but also knowing that it's all right here because let me tell you, that out of sight, out of mind thing is real for me. And I need to be able to see it, to know that I want to work on it, to remember it, and to access it. So the next tab is about my sprints. Word sprint is familiar if you have been in tech. It's used a lot in Agile and Scrum methodologies. I borrowed the language and the basic idea, but it might be better to say it's more like a cycle planning rather than a true sprint. But I operate on 6-week sprints. I've planned my schedule so that it is 5 weeks of work, 1 week of rest. And you can see that I have all of this already mapped out on a calendar for the year so that I can see exactly where I am within the quarter and know that I'm like right now, I'm in sprint 1.1. And then I'll hit my rest week and then I'll be in sprint 1.2. I'll have a rest week and then I'll have the 13th week that kind of sits in between quarters 1 and 2. And that's when I will do my big time reflection and planning for the next quarter and my next sprints. I am also testing this layout as I'm really visual, and there's just something about being able to see the full context of things that I need to see in one field. So I'm testing a couple of different ways to do that, where I am doing a sprint calendar, like this is sprint 1.1, And if I know that there is an appointment or something that will affect my capacity for the day or for the week, I'll go ahead and put it on the calendar before I print it, just so that I can have a high level overview of how I want to plan a project or load up my tasks. So for example, this week is already happens to be a rest week, so I wouldn't be doing any project work on this week. But if this wasn't a rest week, I would know that I actually would have to do very minimal or very light tasks during this week because I already have appointments on 2 days, and that's just going to take up like most of the day. So I will be very minimally focused on doing anything beyond doing these appointments this week. So again, I have in my plan, my hope is to map out maybe which projects I would focus on a given week, and also just to remind myself that I have themed my days. So I do a lot of pre-deciding. I try to help myself out by making decisions before I ever get to the point of needing to have a decision. And so I always do administrative tasks on Monday. I always do my big writing days on Sundays. And I also do like some housekeeping on Fridays, but I also do a lot of social things and out of the house things on Fridays and Saturdays. And Tuesdays, Thursdays really are about focusing, about doing work on different projects and about getting things done that aren't any of the other types of work. The other spread that I'm using for my sprint planning is this gantt style chart where I have the weeks across the top, and then I have the project aligned left, and then I have the task for each project aligned right. Because I had already mapped this out and I had a pretty good idea of how I wanted to work on this, I went ahead and filled in the dots before I printed this. But otherwise, I would just be printing out a blank Gantt chart and writing everything in, filling it in by hand. So that way, if something changed, I would be able to erase and migrate that task to another week. This is also very similar to the Alistair method. If you've done bullet journaling and you're familiar with that method, it's an adaptation of that idea as well. So as you can see, I'm making some progress, and I went ahead and just mapped out the full 13 weeks instead of doing like by sprint, because in this way I can see all of these projects in context. So you can see that I've made some progress on some of my tasks and projects. And you can see that it also serves as a bit of a heat map, or kind of showing me where I might be loading up certain weeks with too many tasks, or too many tasks of the same type of work. I try to make it so that I break out deep creative and deep generative work and align it with lighter or more administrative or less thought heavy tasks. So you can see I have mapped out here. So I can just go down and see, all right. So I've got these projects that I'm working on for this week, these projects for this week, and so on. So it helps me see how far I'm progressing on the project. And it also helps me see how I'm stacking up my work over the course of a week and over the course of the sprints. I'm testing these right now. I'm not sure if I'll keep both of them or one of them will go. We'll have to see. But this gives me a 6-week overview with daily focus. The Gantt chart would take my tasks from my project planning, and then I can assign them to a specific week. So during my weekly review, I would go through, see what I've done, see what I didn't get done. So for example, if this was a Friday or Saturday and I was reviewing and I had only managed to do one of these tasks, then I would have to migrate this next one over, and I would have to decide how to handle the next week's task. Am I willing to stack up 3 tasks, or do I want to roll over and push these out? And then I could mark here, and then next week, I would just write down what I'm working on that week. Standard advice would tell you just to estimate how long things take, but that really doesn't work for me. I need to see all the tasks laid out across all the weeks to notice, oh, that's way too much for week 5 or something like that. So it's visual load management. It prevents problems up front rather than trying to fix them later. And I'm a couple of weeks into this, and both spreads are still useful. It's, one might fall away, both might fall away, and might come up with another way to do this. And that's okay. I'm testing. I'm not locking myself into a perfect system. These spreads, all of these things help me to execute effectively. And also on the last page of the spread, I have some troubleshooting statements that I've designed for myself. So things that I might anticipate might be external obstacles or internal obstacles that will pop up. And this way, if I get stuck or if I get panicked or overwhelmed, I can just come here and look at, oh, okay, so with the 60-second pause, if I forget, I'll just try again tomorrow. I'm not going to worry about missing today. And it's just reminding myself, hey, none of the things that you're encountering are insurmountable. They are suggestions for alternate routes. They don't have to stop you. So that's why I have this at the back of my sprint page. So here's where the friction becomes a feature. I keep one not mail page for ideas that come up as I'm working and going about my life. If an idea survives across multiple sprint cycles, if I keep coming back to this idea of wanting to learn to draw, for example, then it's possibly worth acting on. But if not, if I fill up this page and nothing makes it into a project, then it just fades away. And again, this is disposable. If I get to the end of quarter 2 and I filled this up and nothing feels worth migrating, then I'll just pull out this page and toss it out. And the rating journal also lives here. These are the guidelines for how I'm going to use it. And again, same with the not now. I have a list of books I'm curious about this year. Instead of adding them to my Amazon or my Libby wish list, I write them down here. And maybe I'll borrow it, maybe I'll get it, maybe I will come back to it, maybe it'll be relevant in a few weeks. But once this page is full, if I haven't read anything on here, then I'm going to just pull it out and toss it. I take notes while I'm reading. Here's the thing. If you saw my Milanote video, you notice that I only save things that are directly relevant to what I'm working on. And that's the same principle that I'm using with this Disbound. If it's not directly relevant to something that I'm working on or might potentially work on in the near future, it probably isn't going to last much longer. Because if it didn't shape my thinking when it mattered, it's okay to let it go. The tabs help me keep everything in one place while maintaining separation between planning. I printed these little stickers and put them on there myself. Everything's visible and nothing gets lost in a different notebook. Before I started using the Disbound, I had about 6 different notebooks and I could never find the one that I wanted at the time that I wanted it. And I was always pulling it out and then I was always getting up to look for another notebook and I couldn't remember where I put that thought and it was just driving me absolutely nuts. And I realized that most of the things I was writing in the hard copy book, again, it was disposable. I never referenced it once I was done. So why am I spending all this money on these beautiful books that I don't intend to save beyond once I get them full? So this way I can do my drafts for my newsletters. I can make notes on books. And this, once I stick it in here, once I've processed it at the end of the sprint, rip it out, throw it away, put a fresh batch in, and get started again. If there's anything that I need to reflect on or think about or carry forward, I have prompts, I have motivation prompts, and I have decision and reflection prompts that I can write about in my hard copy. Where I might actually want to reference my reflections or my thinking about specific ideas. This is where the staying happens. This is where the preservation might happen for some things that are important to remind myself. I had actually started using letter size, like one of the big letter sizes, and I literally couldn't find a place to store it. I couldn't stick it on my desk, couldn't store it on my bookshelf, I couldn't pull it out easily when I needed it, and it took up too much room on my desk. So that's why I got this half letter size, and it fits on my bookshelf. It stays open on my desk without taking over. And it also limits how much I can plan and how many notes I can take and how much I can do because I only have this much space for the week. So if I'm going to write it down, it needs to really help me get where I want to go. That's the design of this. I'm not building a museum of what I planned. It's the doing that matters. It's the calendar, the weekly templates, they all get recited. And this is design. It's not a bug. I'm tracking what actually mattered enough to complete or carry forward. And I'm focusing on process over preservation. We live in a world and a moment that wants us to automate everything, optimize everything, track everything, preserve everything in a second brain. Sometimes what we actually need is friction, the kind that makes us slow down and choose what matters, and permission to let go of the rest. Most productivity advice assumes things that just aren't true for everyone. It assumes you'll remember to review things, that you won't compulsively check your apps, that you can accurately estimate time, that digital and analog work the same for your brain. When those assumptions don't hold, the standard strategies just don't work. My Disbound planner isn't trying to be the perfect system. It's what I figured out after 2, 3, 4, 5 years of noticing what actually works versus what I thought should work. It's designed for action and effective doing, not for keeping. It operates at a human pace, my pace. It has room to keep testing and adjusting. If you try something like this, give yourself permission to experiment. Notice what your brain actually does, not what productivity advice says it should do. Build for process, not for preservation. Take pieces that work and leave the rest. The system that works is the one that you'll actually use, not the one that looks perfect on paper.